everyone, and welcome to Exchange, the TLX podcast for faculty by faculty. I'm Patricia Robinson, faculty facilitator with the TLX, and I'm hosting a new segment of Exchange called Exchange Forum, in which I interview our faculty colleagues from across the college. So today I've invited Ramon Delgado to join me, and he is a professor and coordinator in the Center for Arts, Design, and Information Technology. So thanks for joining me, Ramon.
Hi, Patricia.
Can you tell us a little bit about your role at the college?
Well, I'm a coordinator for the School of Media and Performing Arts. I coordinate 3 programs in there: the video design and production, the visual effects, and the Media Foundation program. I've been with the college now since 2013. I don't count years, I count from where I started. And as an educator, I've been doing this now for 23 years, actually.
Okay. That's you're counting years there, 23 years.
Yes, exactly. You're right.
So you've been working in education for quite a long time.
hmm
So in your role, you've been supporting faculty as they transition to online teaching. What have you been learning about your experiences with working with faculty that you could share with us today?
Okay, so, even though this has been an extremely difficult time, there has been a lot of positive things that we have learned and experienced during this time. I think the number one is how important it is to inspire other people to love the technology that we have. The second one is that, and especially what we do, which is very hands-on, is teach principles, not tools. And the last one, and I think is the most important one, is don't be afraid of making mistakes. So I
Yeah.
would summarize that as the top 3 things that we have learned.
Okay. And I really like how you've inspiring other people to love technology. I think that's huge. And then teaching the principles. So that's super important. So let's just start with the first one. Can you tell us a bit more about how you actually inspire others to love the technology?
Well, I mean, there is always, and it's totally human, we all do that, which is, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I wish, I wish, I wish. But the reality is that we do have a lot of tools. And those tools, even though they're not perfect, they are very good. And they really, if we love them, if we at least try to love them, they will help us. And I got to start with, what I call the cornerstone of what we have at the college, which is Blackboard. Blackboard is not perfect, but Blackboard is really good. And there is a lot of things that when the tool is used to the maximum, when we give it the love that it deserves, if I can be a bit romantic with that statement, I think Blackboard is going to love you back, and it's really going to give you the ability to excel at what you do and provide, the right avenues that will help the students learn. So for me, that is the number one. The other thing is basically, get really familiar with your computer, get really familiar with your mobile devices. So, in essence, love what you have because it might not seem like much, but in my experience, there is plenty there. And that allows you to do your work more efficiently, and the students will respond positively to that. In my case, it has been mostly faculty that I've been trying to help transition, and the responses that I'm getting once we do the little things are fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And that really makes me think of, just having a positive frame of mind and, being grateful for what we have. So, instead of looking over at my neighbor's yard and admiring their garden and how mine
Yes.
is full of weeds, I'm gonna, actually some of these weeds are edible. Dandelions can be edible.
And they're
So,
very
so
good for the nature, so it's a good thing. Very
exactly.
simple.
So approaching with a positive frame of mind and appreciating what we have and exactly learning about it and trying to use it to the best of our ability.
Mhm.
So I love that. So you had a second point, which was about teaching the principles or learning the principles and not the tools. So can you elaborate on that?
I'm actually going to use an example from the video design program. I have three faculty in there that had to do something extremely different from what they were doing before. So these are the faculty that teach our camera equipment, so our technology. And then suddenly we're asking them to teach this online. So we embraced that challenge and we came up with amazing ways of teaching them the principles behind filmmaking, principles that really apply to everything you use. It doesn't matter if it's a cell phone or if it's one of the most expensive camera, you're still dealing with exposure, you're still dealing with aperture, you're still dealing with depth of field. So they figure out amazing ways, and that's the strength of this faculty, which again, we are extremely happy and blessed, if I can use that word, with the kind of faculty that we have. They were able to, I help a little bit on that. We were able to come up with ways of making sure that the students were able to use whatever they had at home, if it was a cell phone or if it was a camera, by teaching the principle and not the tool. We weren't saying this is the only equipment that you're going to use, but rather these are the principles that you need to learn. They were very successful. And again, the feedback that we got from most students, of course, there were students that were not happy with this. It's normal, it's human nature. But
Mm-hmm.
those that embraced what the faculty were doing were extremely happy about what they came up to. And that to me is the best example of teach principles, not tools.
Mm-hmm. That's a great example, and I think that we can apply that in other fields as well. Because again, if students have the skills, have the understanding of maybe the theory behind it and how to apply those skills, they can transfer that across whatever the tools are. So yeah, so for example, if somebody has never used Blackboard before, but they were teaching somewhere else and they use design to learn,
Mm,
perhaps they have learned some of the principles about how to
yes.
um, you know add learning content or something. So they hopefully will be able to transfer that to a different learning management system.
100%. 100%. That's a great way to look at it. Again, if you understand the principles behind what you're doing, doesn't matter what tool you have in front of you, you're still gonna succeed.
Hmm. Okay. And you mentioned earlier about the point of not being afraid about making mistakes. So, Ramon, can I ask you, have you made any mistakes that you've learned from and would like to share with us?
Absolutely. I gotta go a bit back on this because that I think taught me some of the lessons that I'm applying now. Earlier in my career, I really dislike rubrics. And, full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of rubrics. I do feel that they limit a little bit of creativity. However, this don't be afraid of making mistakes, right? I made the early mistake of going without rubrics. And I spent so much time explaining to students why they got the grades they got that
Uh-huh.
then one day I realized, okay, if I use rubrics, everything is there. And then I
Uh-huh.
started, right? And I started. So you might say, well, but the mistake that you make was not using rubrics. Actually, the mistake was my attitude. And I learned from that attitude that sometimes you really have to embrace things. So I did learn a powerful lesson. You see, I strongly believe to this day that if I would have just, embrace rubrics and just do a poor job at it and
Yeah.
just write very fundamental and very basic things, which sometimes we do, honestly, I would not have become as proficient as I am with them right now. And I still have a lot to learn. I'm not an
Mhm.
expert by any means, but I do realize that, going back to the tools, right? Mistake of not using them properly. It's very easy when you track your views, when you use Blackboard and track your views, to basically see what things the students are using and what
Mhm.
they're not.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can use that to, end very controversial things, like a student that's saying, you never share with us the outline. I can say, actually, I did. And I also can see that you have spent very little time on Blackboard, and that is like, okay, it helps me as a teacher. But some other things, when I see that the students are looking at content a lot, and still not getting what I'm trying to say, I am making a mistake here.
Uh-huh.
What I'm
Uh-huh.
saying is not very clear. So learn from that and figure out ways to, share with the students um, what ways are going to help them improve. And, again, learn from every mistake that you make. And
Mhm.
you will have a much easier time moving forward, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree, and I think, sometimes when we make mistakes, we don't wanna, you know, be in denial about it because again, it's such a great learning opportunity. And as you said, you like, especially like related to rubrics, you were kind of um like you really didn't want to use it, and a big part of it was just changing your attitude. And
Yeah.
so for future, it has saved you so much time. You don't have to repeat the same thing to 20 students, right? It's in one rubric and you can refer them back to there.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. It really helps you. And, I guess the biggest mistake that I have made in the past, it's always been related to my attitude toward things. And as I mature in my career, I realized that, whenever I am confronted with something new, I immediately put a check on my attitude. I go,
Uh-huh.
all right, wait a second. Let's see what is really going on here before we go, oh, I don't like it. And it has helped me.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's something that you've learned about yourself, right? So this is a tendency that you have, and now
yeah,
that you're aware of this tendency, then you can be proactive in trying to mitigate that.
absolutely. It
Yeah,
helped.
that's a great strategy. I have another question. So, what have been some of the other challenges you or faculty have experienced with transitioning to fully online teaching?
It kind of relates to what I've been saying before, right? We have had these tools for a long time, and I know that sometimes, again, and I start with myself, is that attitude that we have of immediately rejecting something new. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
that everybody does that. I have done that, so I
Mhm.
gotta look at it from my own perspective. And suddenly, we have this pandemic hitting us.
Mhm.
So it has been very good, very positive to work with faculty to try to go and revisit some of these tools that we have. And I have also seen examples where resisting that have led to just painful experiences.
Mhm.
So again, in the end, nobody wanted to be in this situation, but those that embraced technology from the beginning had an easier time than
Mhm.
that did not. And that, I'm sorry, I believe that's a fact.
Mhm. Mhm.
More we learn from those mistakes, the easier it will be in the future, because I don't think this is the last challenge we're going to face. I think this is only, and I'm not being pessimistic, is to me, it's just reality. This
Mhm.
is part of our new reality. And the more we realize and try to learn from those experiences, the easier it will be moving forward. So to me, is the biggest challenge is don't resist technology, embrace what we have, learn to love it. Yes, there are things that could be better, but there is a lot of positive too. And the more we embrace that, the better it will be. And the better we will be at dealing with those challenges.
Mhm. And like a big part of it is that it's here to help us, right? These tools are here to support us in teaching our students and reaching them. And it's like as teachers or instructors, we're developing another skill ourselves, right? It's
Yes.
our own professional development by going through and learning these tools and figuring out what works and doesn't work. And once we get a bit of practice, then we can figure out, what tools are actually supporting the students' learning,
Yeah.
and what is there just because it's technology. Like, is it actually supporting the students' learning? Do I need to use this one little thing or not? And I think that's part of our professional growth, that we're we have been forced
Yeah.
into that, but yeah, I think that's a good point, that we should be embracing it. Um,
Yeah.
so I have another question. What are some of the highlights or joys that you have been experiencing?
To me, this is the greatest one. I believe that every educator feels at his best when student feedback supports the effort that we have put into what we do. Nothing is more satisfying than a student saying, "Thank you. This is a very difficult time, but you know what? I appreciate the effort placed in here. Was everything perfect? No. But the effort that some of these faculty have put has been amazing. And the students, reflected that. I like
Mhm,
to believe that the vast majority of students did. There were some negative feedback, absolutely. Some people did not do really well learning at
mhm,
home, 100%.
mhm,
But what I'm happy to see is that the majority of the feedback that at least I have gotten from most of the students is the professors did a really good job. They really came up with ways of being engaging. Some professors went above and beyond. And yes, some feedback was that some professors did not. And that is expected. Do I think that that means that those professors are bad? No. To me, is to me still a positive. Still very joyful to see that if we embrace what some of these professors that did right, and
mhm, mhm,
sharing those lessons. For example, because I don't want to be cryptic here. There was the storytelling professors that we have, the sound professors that we have, the directing professors. um, they really came up with extremely creative ways to get the students engaged, and they were being very, very fun and very communicative, right? That
mhm.
that communication aspect is very critical when you're not in the classroom, and that really paid dividends. So to me, it was a reaffirmation that yes, we can do this, and we can do it online. We're never gonna be 100% as effective as if we were in the classroom, but the opposite is also true. There were some classes that we actually have students saying, actually, that particular class worked better online than it did in person.
Mhm,
That was very good to hear,
mhm.
because it means that there are lessons there that we're still studying, that we're still learning. And I know we're gonna come up with, best practices on how to do this online. And they're not necessarily your traditional best practices. They're um, be a little goofy. You know what? The students appreciate that. You
Yes.
that, eyes, and you make me feel comfortable because you were not afraid to say silly things and to really show that human side of you. I think that was very positive, very, very joyful for me.
That whole human connection, I mean, it can be so hard to replicate through this online learning way. But again, like, even literature that I've been reading, is students are really responding, and are a lot more engaged when they can make those connections with their instructors and other students in the class. And that's what people are really missing right now too, right? In this pandemic, is
Yes.
that human connection. So being able to find that in their classes online is really amazing.
Yep. If you can do it in person, you really have to go a little bit extra to do it online, but it is
Yes.
possible. It is
Yes.
possible.
Yeah, the payback is is worth it, I think, getting that positive student feedback. So it sounds like you and your faculty have been experiencing a lot of success in your department in spite of many challenges,
Mhm.
and then there's a lot of things that are going right. I'm glad that you were able to join me today, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experiences. And
Mhm.
hopefully, we can reconnect again to learn some more.
Absolutely. And again, just, there have been some negative too, but I don't want to concentrate on those. I prefer to spend the time on what we did right, because I think that by doing this better, and I will be more than happy to share more with you, because there are things that we're still learning.
Hmm.
We're evaluating what we did still, and we're trying to figure out ways to, like, what worked really well, what didn't work so well, where did the students have issues, because those are important lessons.
Hmm.
And I think, again, thank you for this opportunity to share this. Hopefully will help somebody else. And I'll be more than happy as we get more and more information to share that, because I think we by all of us doing this, we're gonna figure out the best formulas. They're not gonna be perfect, there's still
Yeah.
gonna be mistakes, but it's okay. It's okay to
Yeah.
make.
I appreciate that, and I agree, because again, we're forced into this situation, but look at it positively, because we are learning all these lessons, and focusing on the positive, I think, is really important, right? We can really get caught up
Yes,
in that negative, what's not working. But if we want to move forward and grow professionally and grow as a college, it is really important to focus on those positives and what is working here, what is working there, and then what can we try to continue doing even after this pandemic.
absolutely.
So thank you so much, Ramon, and I'll definitely contact you again, maybe this summer.